Oh, I actually like this one because I feel like it's going to be different for everyone. But somebody wrote in and asked us if we still feel like the pressure to be perfect coming from the show and like in the public eye. And how do you feel now? I'm sure it's been like a roller coaster in the last 4 years since you've come off the show.
Yeah, when you first come off the show, you definitely still feel that way because you've been on TV for so long. Then your season airs, and you just feel like you have to live up to the way people last saw you on television, especially if you come off as a couple because you're like, oh my gosh, we have to be talking all the time. We have to be laughing together. We have to be holding hands because people think that you're unhappy, even though you walk around and you see most couples not doing any of that. That wears off, I would say, after about a year. It's probably a year. Now, do I feel the pressure to be perfect in public? Absolutely not. Especially after all the stuff that I've gone through. No, I don't care. I think at this point, it's interesting because I think part of that pressure comes from people. You have to reinvent yourself. You know what I mean? It's almost as if people think you were born the day that you walked out of the limo from whoever's season. And that's the image that they have of you, and that's it. And so you feel like you have to live up to that. And then as you start to let that go and kind of reinvent yourself back into society or reestablish yourself back into society, you start to not care about those things.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
definitely don't feel it now. What about you?
Now I would say no. I did very much so. I mean, and I've gone through a couple different stages because obviously when I came from the show, I was in a relationship for 2 years. So like you said, it's one thing when you're in that relationship and like wanting to not even like put on a public facade or like a brave face, but it's like people will, like they'll DM you or they'll write or they'll post and be like, oh my gosh, they're not together one weekend or someone's not wearing the ring or they're not talking at dinner, like all the weird things that it's just a lot. And it's just like a weird world to transition to, especially like coming from like what I was doing beforehand. So at that point, yes. And then obviously like going through a very public breakup, I kind of like, not that I felt pressure to be perfect, but I felt pressure to like, I didn't want to like give too much to the public to have them feed into any sort of narrative. So I felt pressure to like, okay, how do I walk this fine line of like still being who I am and like trying to navigate this new world that I'm living in and being a single woman versus like still giving like, especially our listeners, because I know they put so much stock into us and the podcast and, like want to hear from us and feel relatable to them. So it was like this weird fine line that I was walking. But, these days my give a shit level is so, I'm just like, I've gotten to the point where like, I realize I'm never going to please everyone. I'm not even going to please probably the majority, but as long as I stay true to who I am and what fuels me and is still respectful to my friends, my family, and what I believe in, like, that's all I can do. And so I feel like I've gotten to the point now where I can feel better about not always having to be perfect or saying the right things or appeasing everyone on social media. And so it finally feels good to like kind of come into my own in this new like chapter of my life, I would say.
Good for you. Oh, that's the perfect way to end the podcast.
Yeah. So I hope people realize, like, at the end of the day, we are all humans, whether we are on a TV show or not, whether we are a host of a show or of a podcast or working in public relations or like whatever it might be. At the end of the day, like, we're all humans. And like, I know people look at us like we're these characters, and that's not the case. And so, It's been a journey, but it's been so fun. And Rachel, I'm just so happy you're back. This was just the best way to end the night, honestly.
It feels good to be back talking with you. So yes, I'm happy. Even though it's late, it doesn't matter because I had so much fun.